Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Professor Christopher McGlothlin, and I am here to put a song in your heart and a spring in your step because it's the all-singing, all-dancing, all-musical version of There you go, my friends. $50 million in CGI. There we go. Getting this show off to a great, great start. Well, hello again. I am Professor Christopher McGlothlin, and on my good days, I am the Creative Pit Boss of Go Show Press, a small but mighty independent voice for independent creators speaking out on media, quirky, weird, strange media that we love. And it doesn't get much quirkier or weirder or quirkier than tonight's topic, horror musicals. So for those of you that may not know what we've done in the past, well, you may know me from such horror documentaries as The Exorcist Untold, and you may recognize me and the fine gentleman around me from our well-known book series, Everyone's Gone to the Movies, where we have so far done Fantastic Flops. I'm counting down. That's number 3, preceded by Subversive Sci-Fi Volume 2 and Transgressive Horror Volume 1 in our series. And if you put it together, it makes a lovely 1, 2, 3. And because of the wonderful gentleman here on the grid next to me, Mr. Sean Vieira, and our other fine backers, we have added a 4th book, Transgressive Horror Resurrected, which is entering the end game. We're almost there. It's almost ready to go to layout. And again, we never would have gotten there without the brilliant and generous support of our super backers like Sean. And Sean's joining us tonight to talk about horror musicals. This was his delightful suggestion for a topic. So let's welcome him to the show. Welcome, Sean.
Welcome, Sean.
Yes, thank you. And joining us for the Go Show cast, we'll just go around here. One of the finest human beings on the planet, a guy whose game genius is responsible for my entire basement being half full of small clickable figures, and a man whose generous spirit and talents, we go all the way back to when we used to make up a superhero universe together. He is, and by the way, he's also an amazing writer, and so blessed to have Seth Johnson with us tonight and as part of the Go Show cast. Welcome, Seth.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Awesome. And hey, another one who followed me from my wayward be-caped days, a long time friend of Ghost Show and of mine, Mr. John Polizak. How are you tonight, sir?
Very well, thank you much. Been a difficult year, but I'm trying to show some aplomb and maybe even still display a bit of panache.
Oh wow!
Very nice.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm just happy if I hit competence. So
if I can achieve panache, that will be quite a feat for me.
There you go.
We know you got it in you, man. We're rooting for you. And always such a delight to have one of the best and most amazing friends I have ever had in my long life. One of the wonderful people who talked me into doing this thing, making me think I could do this thing. And we lovingly call him the godfather of Go Show Press, the one, the only, the legend, Mr. James Louder. Welcome, James. How are you tonight?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, great.
Go Show does in part have that basis in Chris just wanted to make me watch Witchfinder General over and over again to torture myself to finally write that essay for the first one.
For those of you that don't know, Jim was just mentioning that he was part of the way through an essay on the Witchfinder General, and in the middle of the pandemic lockdown, and the thought occurred to me that I'd like to read James's thoughts on how could I do that? Well, I could start a series of movie books and ask him to be a part of it, and then I could publish it. Then I'd get to read it. Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go. This is where we've wound up, folks. Here you go. From one idol, dangers of social media, folks. There you go.
Yep. What makes the Ghost Show book so great is they gave me an excuse to watch Lone Ranger cartoons for the first time in 40 years and say, no, this is for work. I have to be sitting here doing this. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Isn't that part of what great about what we do with the movies and the gaming stuff we've gotten to do is stuff that used to be our hobbies are now like a tax write-off for us, and maybe we've even cashed a check or two doing this.
Right.
Well, I have
Here,
to say it's also been very educational, as I commented to you. The first volume, horror, I always thought of myself as somebody that didn't necessarily like horror movies. Then seeing the list of the movies and readings, oh, actually, there is a bunch of movies which I do like, and they are horror.
Oh wow! Well, that's great. I was, and honestly, that first book, I'm so proud of it, and I was glad we were able to share our affection for these films. Something I was hoping this series would do, and the things that we did in terms of just like expanding the definition of horror, like in the first one when James, your longtime friend Craig Fisher wrote about a Godot, Godard.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Craig did Weekend for
yeah.
That was a great essay. Yeah, Craig
and John tackling Willy Wonka in Transgressive Horror Resurrected.
Yep.
It's wow, just the amazing things you guys do. It's all right. Well, so Sean, what drew you to horror musicals? What was it that made you think of this for a topic?
Well, as it turned out, for my 20th wedding anniversary a couple years back, we went back to where we went to our initial honeymoon, which is Stratford Theatre Festival, which is in Canada. It's a huge Shakespearean.
No kidding. That's where my wife and I went on our honeymoon too.
And we took my daughter along to see a bunch of different plays and the musicals that were running. And it turns out my daughter is a music theater kid. And since then, we've been going back regularly to Stratford and seeing musicals that come to Ottawa, where we live, on a regular basis. I think this year so far, we're up to at least one a month. Just saw The Lion King, and next week we're actually seeing Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the musical. For it. So, but, and one of the things is this summer when we went is they had Something Rotten, which is about Shakespeare, but it shows a lot of deference to the musical history, and it makes reference to multiple plays, including one of the props in there is Audrey from The Little Shop of Horrors, which made me think, on top of that, Beetlejuice, the musical, is coming to Ottawa, so I'm trying to get tickets. So I was thinking, this would make a great topic for it, because, honestly, you wouldn't think horror and, a bunch of people breaking into song would go along. And I thought, but then I stopped and thought, there's a heck of a lot of horror musicals out there, much more than one can think. And I thought back, they've even made Evil Dead the musical. I was there at a convention where the cast invited Bruce Campbell to come and watch the musical, but it was debuting in Toronto.
Is that the one where they do the Gallagher thing? Like they give like plastic sheets to like the first 3 rows?
Depending on the production, from what I understand, yes.
Okay. All right, I'd go see that. I pay to see that.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, Sean, since you have the floor, we're going to go around and talk about our favorite horror musicals. So do you have one you want to throw out there first for your favorite horror musical?
Oh, well, that has to be simply Sweetie Todd, the demon butcher of Fleet Street.
Okay. Well, what is it that grabs you about that film?
I love a good period piece. There's something to always be said about something historical. So, it's never dated because, it is a period piece. It's meant to be in that time. Plus, it's the soundtrack stays with you. It is one of those. And I've also seen a couple of parodies of it, which always make you appreciate the original.
Oh, all right. Well, solid reasons, and a remarkable visual film in addition to the ultimate test of a musical. Do you remember the tunes after you leave the theater?
Right.
All right. So Seth, you had a fantastic piece on the Little Shop of Horrors, I guess what we can now call media franchise. In our most recent book. And by the way, rest in peace to the late Jonathan Hayes, who helped get it all started all those years ago. So bless his soul. Well, but yes,
that is indeed my favorite horror musical right there. And I say that kind of out of a limited subset. I think I talked about as part of the Kickstarter campaign that I can be kind of a hard sell when it comes to horror. And Little Shop of Horrors was actually one of the movies that brought me towards horror from, an upbringing watching mostly superhero cartoons and movies and a lot of musicals. But I was like, hey, this looks kind of funny and it's a musical. Oh, I bet I can get my family to watch this. And it turns out it was fantastic, and I've loved it ever since.
So the toughest little critic in your house liked it.
My mom, yes, she did.
Oh, so what was it uniquely appealing about Little Shop to you?
Well, I mean, for me, the first thing I saw was Frank Oz's movie version, and I love the cast. You have Rick Moranis, you have Steve Martin, and once I started watching it, incredible music. Just like you were just saying. You have the songs you'll still remember after the show ends, and then you have Audrey, who absolutely incredible in the movie. They did some kind of incredible, very subtle movie trickery to really bring her to life, and that's on top of the tricks they've been developing for years in the stage version. Later I saw the stage version in person, and then as I was doing some of the research for the essay for the book and learning about how they developed that, it was a really incredible process where they went from, well, maybe we can do it as just a little hand puppet, and it became so much more than that, and it just became this incredible 2-story monster that towered over the audience. And and then finally they could kind of fully realize what they could only sing about on stage in the movie, where they did the plants actually going around and destroying the world, which may have pushed things too far since they cut that from the theatrical version. But it's a wonderful story.
Have you seen the alternate ending?
Yeah, it's available online, so you can find.
What do you think? Did they make the right choice not going with that?
I like it as a visual spectacle. I think I kind of like where the movie version and even the stage version ends. Where the stage version I think takes a little bit further, where they say, "Oh yes," they say it actually happened, but you don't actually see it, and so you kind of get the best of both worlds, where you kind of get the feeling of a happy ending, even when you get kind of the warning of this great horrible thing occurring. In the movie where they make it, where they actually you see it happen, you see the plants chortling as they go around destroying cop cars and climbing the Statue of Liberty. It's almost a bit too much. It breaks kind of the spell of the humor, I think, that really makes the horror work for it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's very fair, very fair. Yeah. But it's funny you mentioned the stage production, but because my campus has been blessed by just this amazing series of outstanding drama teachers. I mean, just one home run after another. And one of my past colleagues opted to do Little Shop for our spring play. And it just so happens that like all of his stage hands and stuff were in my supervisory block. And it was like for like a 6-week period, every day the phone would ring and he'd be like, "Hey, can you spare such and such and such and such? I need some help." And like by the end of the first week, the phone would ring. Those kids would get out of their seats and they would start this slow trudge. And they would just look at me like, the plant broke again, didn't it? It was like guys going off in the jungle combat. It was this slow, depressing march, and it's after week 3, like I could tell him you're not here. Like no, he'll find us. So yeah.
One of my favorite things I found when I was researching online was you can find videos online for the stage companies that rent out the plant to productions. So you can actually order it, and this giant crate comes. And they have videos about here's how you uncrate the plant, and here's how you assemble it, and here's where you put the counterweight so this giant thing can move around. And it looks sturdy, but I can also see how when the plant starts chewing on people, things can go awry pretty quickly. Because there's a whole section on here's how to teach your actors how to crawl into the mouth so it looks like you're being eaten.
Right.
At the Stratford Festival, they have a tour of their props and costumes department, and Audrey, one of the large versions of it, is one of the prominent items for people to come and look at, and it is very impressive when you get to see it up close.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow. Wow, you guys have given me so many great ideas for my birthday party in February. So, all right. Oh, now, as we segue to James Louder, we have special thanks from the host to David Swing. Thank you for tuning in tonight, David. David is setting up James's appearance with a perfect comment here. I got to put this one on the screen here. There we go. There we go. Somebody reading your novels instead of working on their undergrad. Yeah, as a tenured professor, much better use of your time, sir. Read more louder. That's my advice to everybody. Read more louder.
Thank you very much.
I am shocked and embarrassed to say that I just realized the fact is, oh wait, I have a ton of his novels on my shelf that I kept.
That happens. That happens a fair bit. I mean, one of the first times Chris and I were talking at Gen Con when you were working the Green Ronin booth, you came up the second year we talked. You wrote for Film Facts, didn't you? Because I wanted, right at the time I started at TSR, I had been doing video and film book reviews for Film Facts magazine and Sci-Fi Universe and a bunch of other film magazines around that late 80s, early 90s time frame. So I have just a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, looking back, I'm more embarrassed than usual because knowing the full extent of the magnificent things that James has done, and I'm asking about these 20-year-old.
Oh no! It was fantastic. I mean, I've had discussions with like Eric Mona about specific, because I did a video review column for Polyhedron magazine for like 50 issues too, Into the Dark, and in the late 80s, early 90s. When I was in-house. And Eric remembered a specific title from one of my columns about, because I grouped them by whatever I could find at the video store and jam them into a theme. So one of the columns was about Sword Tossing 101, movies where at some point in the story, the hero throws his sword at the bad guy.
I love
it. and Eric remembered that over all of that.
Wait, does it also include scenes where they like toss the sword to a compatriot?
No. It had to be, I'm disarming myself by throwing my hand weapon at you. That was the linking element for those things. So I mean I've been doing this since the late 80s. So I've been very fortunate to be able to write on stuff steadily. So
that's great. That's great. Well, topic at hand. What's your favorite horror musical?
Well, I'll let you talk about it in detail because you've got the shirt on.
No, please. You talk about it.
Phantom of the Paradise is my favorite, but I'll mention a couple of others. And I'm sure you'll cover for Phantom some of the things. I mean, it is just the bleakest ending. Absolutely nihilistic 70s, just skewering entertainment, and it's none more darker than the ending of that film. But Head sort of falls into the same category, which I wrote about for Fantastic Flops. That's sort of a Gilliam-esque Brazil sort of dystopian film. The Polish film The Lure from not that long ago, about mermaids in a club in Poland is amazing if you haven't seen it. On Criterion still, well worth watching. But the one I will mention is Shock Treatment. The really fantastic follow-up film to Rocky Horror that doesn't get nearly the credit it deserves. And if people haven't watched it in a long time, this is the perfect time to watch that film. It is a dystopian media political nightmare. And including the point where at the end, they all get baseball caps in the audience to join it's spot on nuts how accurate this is. It gets slammed because people consider it's supposed to be, as the follow-up to Rocky Horror. People are expecting this is going to be more 70s sexual liberation, freedom at the end, and it's 100% in the opposite direction, where the main characters escape, the Brad and Janet characters escape, and with a couple of other characters, but the majority of Denton, the town for this, ends up in an asylum, happily singing in an asylum run by these horrible, horrible, horrible people. It's got some fantastic musical numbers in it. Jessica Harper takes over for Susan Sarandon in the second movie. She has a magnificent voice. Again, Paradise makes a great Phantom of the Paradise shock treatment double feature. Jessica Harper double feature right there. The film is really well directed, and some of the cinematography is astounding. Wes Anderson got in a time machine and shot several of these sequences and then jumped back to the future. There are whole musical numbers that are 100% look like they could be lifted out of the latest Wes Anderson movie. Color schemes, framing, the whole thing. It's insane. The cinematographer, Mike Malloy, had been a cameraman on Clockwork Orange and Barry Lyndon and Walkabout, and had done, as a cameraman, had done these spectacular things and working with brilliant cinematographers and with Kubrick and with, the other directors that he had worked with in Australia, and brought a lot of that to this film, and it really holds up. It's not perfect. It bogs down a little bit in the second half because there were a bunch of rewrites, but overall it punches way above its weight. And I hadn't watched it in probably 25 years, and I watched it again for this just twice in the last 2 days because that movie was really, really good. Clearly I have to watch it again to see it. Does that really punch above its weight that hard? Yeah, it really does. So shock treatment is well worth tracking down.
Wow. There you go. That's the reason I'm happy to host this show. The reason I tune into this show. We are resurrecting the reputation of shock treatment, much to the annoyance of several fishnet wearing people on the internet. I'm sure.
They were expecting, and Tim Curry doesn't belong in that movie. A lot of people do. Richard O'Brien and Charles Gray and Lil Mel and a lot of the other people from Rocky Horror are in it. Early appearance by Rick Mayall of The Young Ones.
Wow.
Is in them singing and dancing Rick Mayall. Which is amazing too. And so it's, the people who were expecting it to be, this is going to be in the spirit of and in as a sequel to Rocky Horror, so the marketing for it was all completely wrong. But if you take it as a standalone film, and especially if you take it as a standalone film that in 1981 absolutely guts Reagan's America, the growing reality media movement toward people being pulled into this, media bubble, which is literally the plot of the film, it's decades ahead of its time.
Wow. Yeah. And let's see. So this is in a 40-year. So 40 years from now, will me or whoever's hosting the show, will we be doing a show talking about how Joker, Folie à Dieu? Man, that movie called it. Why did people hate that back in 2024?
Right? I mean, you can't. Yeah. And when I watched it before, 20 years ago, I thought, this was good. And some of the musical numbers are great. The theme song is great. There are more than three, but three really standout musical numbers in it.
Wow.
And I thought it was good. And I watched it now and it's like, no, this is aged really well. It's actually completely on target. This is very good to great. definitely great in points. And Jessica Harper has got such a magnificent voice that having her in that part, that the Susan Sarandon and Janet part, is perfect. So
wow, that's that. Well, there you go. That wow. All right. Well, now we're swinging over to John Polizak. John,
unfortunately, everyone likely hit the ones I'm most familiar with, which were Phantom of the Paradise and
go ahead and talk about Phantom if you want.
And Sweeney Todd, and then of course also Little Shop of Horrors. I suppose if you want, I can see into the essay I did for Transgressive Horror Resurrected, which was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Well, okay. We don't want to spoil too much in the book, but I know everybody who's heard us bring that up twice are asking the same question: how does this madman get Willy Wonka into a horror film book? You would give him the short version of that?
I guess read the essay and decide whether I made an effective case or not.
Well, it's Roald Dahl. I mean,
yeah.
It's not that far a step. I mean, it's a natural question to ask, right?
Yeah, I mean, when the professor approached me about doing another transgressive horror essay, I admit for a moment I was a little at odds, just because it's just been a little difficult. My mother passed this year after what we thought was getting her through a health crisis. But then she unfortunately, she was just ready. It was just her time. She was 89 when she went. And all except her last maybe 2 or 3 months were good ones. And I've also got another aging family member that my wife and I are doing a lot for, and just a lot going on. But I think I remembered for some reason that I just wanted to come up with the most off the wall take I could on a film that as I got older watching it, I always thought was not quite the amiable, moral, semi-moralistic family fare that it purports to be. Which was, the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie by Dahl. And, I rewatched it on demand. And I thought, Willy Wonka, as portrayed by Gene Wilder, is amiable and charming and brilliant. And he is also a manipulative, deceptive, mentally erratic, callous, frankly, borderline sadistic lunatic. He is a psychotic. If you step back and just put aside his charm, his grace, his humor, the spark in his eye, the man's a lunatic. He's not playing fair with these people whatsoever. He's manipulating all of them. He is a horrible human being in almost every regard. I mean, he's there, essentially setting them up to be ensnared in these situations. He doesn't disclose the rules in any sort of fair or clear manner. He has his, personal agent running around pretending to be his business rival. And, for the most part, you might say that, Veruca Salt, the poster child for for a glimpse into future late stage capitalism. All right, she might be deserving, although she really gets off relatively light, assuming she survives, because we only have Wonka's word for that.
Fitty.
Mike TV is frankly, he is a cloud cuckoo lander. The kid is clearly mentally ill. Augustus Gloop, I mean, aside from being overweight, the poor kid he doesn't do one mean thing. He doesn't say one mean thing. He's not bullying anybody. And Wonka's there, it almost looked like Wonka pushed him into the river of chocolate. I don't think he quite makes contact, but clearly he startles the kid, falls into the river of chocolate. Wonka's concerned about the chocolate, of course, being contaminated.
John, when you go on the internet tomorrow and everybody's wearing Augustus was pushed shirts,
there you go.
Think about what you did there, man. You think about what you did. Sean, you have?
I was gonna say, have anybody ever actually read the sequel book that was to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? It's Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator or something like that.
Yeah.
I read about it when I started researching for my essay a bit more, and I read about that, and I'm like, yeah,
when I was
just lost his mind at that point.
When I was a kid, so it was a class thing. Started reading Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as we do, and the teacher was, and I went, okay, this is interesting. It was an interesting read. I went and got the sequel, as you do. I read it. I had to go back and read the first book because I basically thought, these people I could see exactly where you are for the horror because I read the second book.
Yeah.
It reframes everything in the first book.
Yeah. Well, even John, when you're hitting on a lot of the stuff when Dahl is drawing on the German kids books like Struwelpeter and stuff like that with kids who are leaning back in their chairs. I don't know if you've ever seen the Struwelpeter, which is just complete nightmare fodder. So little Tom Suck-a-Thumb, little kid keeps sucking his thumb, and then the red-legged scissormen come in and chop off his thumb.
Oh, all right. I mean, I've heard the rhyme, and
that's from the Grant Morrison Doom Patrol.
Yeah,
thing.
I read the.
That's where he gets it from, the Struwelpeter. There's a girl that leans back in a girl who's playing with matches with her cat standing there, and she lights herself on fire and burns into a pile of ashes, and the cat's cry. That's the stuff that Dahl is drawing on for those children moralistic tales, and they're all straight horror. They are.
Of course, Dahl wrote Adult Fare. Right. And Dahl, I remember Dahl at one time discussing how he, had this morbid enjoyment of delving into body horror.
Yeah.
That was a particular interest of his in evoking feelings of disgust and I suppose, not, almost dissociation with one's own physical body. And certainly, as we've all found out, Dahl had a few, he had a few bugaboos. He had a few less than attractive personality quirks.
Oh, yeah. Right. Well, one of the interesting things, and this is about the musical form overall, is even the musicals that are considered the happy, positive musicals. You don't get into like Sweet Charity or some of the other ones that have this is actually super dark when you think about what this musical is about, which Last Night in Soho tapped into perfectly at the beginning with that. Meet Me in St. Louis has the Hell Night sequence, which is, and the kid dies.
It's true, yeah.
Brigadoon, actually, from Jeff's standpoint, the Van Johnson character is a horror movie. I'm stuck with all of these horrible people, and you go off and, because I can't believe in Brigadoon, I'm stuck here. The same thing with and Singing in the Rain too. If you look at Singing in the Rain from the vantage about what that was done in the Congdon and Green putting that together in the political climate, it's about naming names and who has voices and dancing with dummies, right?
Yeah.
Except you get to the end of the movie and Lena Lamont gets punished, and she's not wrong. She does have a contract. They completely screw her at the end of that movie, and it's the Hollywood system that wins, grinding the people up and making the characters at the end of the movie conform to what they want them to be. Now you're up on the thing. So there are these weird things when you look at even those kind of musicals where this darkness underpinning them, whether it's intentional or not. And Sweet Charity, it's intentional. The earlier musicals, not so much. What possessed them to put that sequence in Meet Me in St. Louis, I'll never know. That's one that you watch that movie and it's like, and now for an interlude of horror and death, and now we're back to the musical.
I mean, even as a kid, I think I recognized that the psychedelic what was it? The fairy sequence in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Fairy. What was the Wonkatania?
Right.
I'm like, why is that there? I mean, aside from it being the right era to have like a bad head trip,
right?
I suppose even what was purportedly a kid / family matinee movie starring Gene Wilder, because the imagery in that was just it was literally skin crawling, and again, if you listen to Wonka narrating their little passage, he gets increasingly almost hysterical. He's doing everything he can to basically cause these people to panic.
Yeah, it's genuine. Yeah, if you're a kid watching that, it's genuinely frightening.
Yeah, I mean, the images are generally disturbing.
Yep.
So yeah, it really, when that idea popped into my head, I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is particularly that hard a case to make.
Right.
And note, I am talking about the film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I don't address the remake. Which, look, if you're an adult and you met the Willy Wonka characters played by Johnny Depp, and you didn't turn right around and leave immediately, guess what? You deserve to have your kids taken away from you. Not by Wonka, but by Child Protective Services. Because I'm sorry, I mean, he was giving off a serious vibe there in that film.
Need we say more than by his own admission he was doing a Michael Jackson impression, and hasn't that aged well?
Yeah, well, I mean,
it did not age well.
Yeah, and that's, again, you tap back into the kids stuff. Wizard of Oz, right? I mean, there's the genuinely disturbing stuff, and then even the Fairuza Balk Return to Oz, which is actually more faithful to the Baum novels than the MGM musical.
Yeah,
that's amazing that they got that movie made.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I guess I have to take a turn and talk about Phantom, but yes, I don't know if I can do it justice. So if you take nothing else away from what I say about Phantom, find a way to see it. Disney is going to fight you tooth and nail, but if you have to catch one of the 3 a.m. Fox Movie Channel's showings, if you have to resubscribe to cable to get Fox Movie Channel, if you have to go find the extraordinary Blu-ray DVD,
there are some very good Blu-rays out there of it now.
Yes, it's worth your time, because you will never, ever see any film like this. You will feel every emotion people can possibly feel. There's so many things in there that make me just laugh out loud, and I don't want to spoil any of them. The soundtrack by Paul Williams at the height of his powers and cocaine addiction, covering so many genres, with great aplomb, everything from like 60s surf rock and just songs of like true haunting beauty, like the song Old Souls. If you've ever truly been in love with somebody, Old Souls will just walk right up to you and go, "Excuse me, you won't be needing this anymore," and just rip your heart right out of you. I don't cry as much as I let on. I joke about being a crier when I'm really not. But one of the times I was really in tears was I was at an emotional, well, not a high point in my life, and I was rewatching them the first time in ages, and the scene where the Phantom is watching the guy who's Paul Williams is this magnificently detestable villain, has literally taken everything away from him, including the great love of his life, Phoenix, and he's got to hang on top of his roof and watch him make love to her with this shit-eating grin on his face as he's looking up at him like, ha 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 ha.
He knows, right?
Yeah, I mean, oh my God.
The other part about the music that's amazing is if you listen to the music overall, they take the great stuff that the Phantom writes, and they literally bastardize his genius stuff into that surf rock stuff that it's about upholstery.
Yes.
And it's the same music with these just god awful exploitive, fad chasing lyrics over the top of it. And when you watch the movie a couple of times, you go, oh my God, they actually are just ripping off his music and turning it into this awful stuff.
Yes.
And the thing that's part of the music thing that's amazing is this was done in 74.
Yes.
74. So it was actually a little ahead of Sha-Na-Na on TV and some of the 50s nostalgia, Happy Days and all of that stuff. And so they do, he's got the bad fake 50s doo-wop group who are all just hoodlums molesting the women in the audience and all the rest of it. And so, De Palma was ahead of even that, seeing what that nostalgia was going to do. It's remarkable. That soundtrack bears listening to just by itself to see the parody stuff in there.
Yes, because you know what life's all about, man? Carburetors.
Carburetors, man. That's what life's all about.
One last thought on Phantom, and then I'll hand it back to Sean for his second fantastic question. Is as we talk about films that have aged well, towards the end of the movie, when the Phantom is just trying to save his dear love Phoenix from a guy who's literally in league with the devil, and he can only really warn her about one thing, and it's about the price of fame. And the words that he uses to try to save her is he talks about this mob that seems to be in love with her, and he just tries to tell you they're going to want more than you'll ever be able to give them. And now that everything we do is being recorded, and yes, I realize the irony of me saying this on a live YouTube stream from my basement, that's a line that just hits all the more as time goes on. So yes, and as soon as this show's over, I'm probably going to put on Old Souls and probably just cry like a 4-year-old. So go watch Phantom.
Is there some legal issue with? It occurs to me I have not seen that film.
It's
listed for being broadcast anywhere for I don't know how long.
Well, they had to skim over. They had to put stuff over Paul Williams' company in it. His name is Swan. It's the Faust deal with him, and he has Swan Records, which turned out to be Led Zeppelin's label.
Oh,
oops!
Yeah, they had to change Swan Song to Death Records, hilariously unconvincingly.
Yes, and so they had to slap early logo things, digital logos over the Swan Song, Swan Records stuff, because Led Zeppelin objected to the label.
And now sadly Disney owns it, so it's good luck finding it.
Yes. But the ending of that movie gets darker every time you watch it.
Oh yeah.
That movie is just bleak. The last shots in that film, segueing into one of the greatest songs Paul Williams has ever written, for the closing credits for that film, is incredibly dark.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it in over 20 years.
Yeah.
And I remember really, really, I don't know if I liked the film, but I mean, I thought I was just enthralled by the film when I watched it. And originally, I thought it was one thing, and then I realized, no, this is something very different than what I
And the use of the split screen on the
thought it
Juicy
was.
Fruits thing when he's
Yes.
got the bomb in the car, and they show the him shooting up into the catwalks.
Such great stuff.
Just top filmmaking right there.
Indeed. So here's to Brian De Palma and everyone behind Phantom.
Yep.
And Sean, we got to get to your.
I confess, the first time I saw Phantom of the Paradise, I thought I was watching Kiss Meets the Phantom at the park. So it was a very confusing experience for the first 2 minutes.
There was a rather famous quote from Gene Simmons of Kiss that they were promised that it was going to be like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band meets Star Wars. And
little did they know it was the Robert Stigwood Sgt. Pepper's version that they were talking about.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, Sean, now you hit us with a second brilliant question about what horror film should be made into a musical. So you want to check in with your choice for that?
Tremors. I think it could really work if somebody was to put some effort to it. Think about it. You have the classic lone heroes, the desire to leave a dying town song, epic there, a stop, nobody move type of numbers. Then the frantic dash chase sequence. Hell, the survivor couple doing a ode to guns at some point would probably be called for. And I haven't seen it yet. I've been told, the sandworm that they utilize in Beetlejuice, it works well. So clearly, they can do something on the stage to simulate these underground aliens and a crash. And I think just part of me thinks that it could possibly work.
Oh yes, and I know Sean will be too modest to say any of this, but thanks to Sean's generosity in backing our Kickstarter, Transgressive Horror Resurrected is now +1 with an essay on Tremors, and thanks to our own Rob Weiland, who's making his Ghost Show debut.
Oh, nice.
On this. And we're all and I've read it, and thank you, Sean, for making it happen, and I think all y'all will be very, very, very happy about the results. But here's the man you need to thank to make it happen. I'll get. Oh, there we go. Yes. Well, good choice. And what a great excuse to bring Kevin Bacon back, right?
Yeah.
All righty. Seth, what would you make into a musical if you could?
I've been thinking about this, and I'm thinking, I think the Monster Squad would make a great musical. Wow. You get a lot of monsters. It's almost like the jukebox musical of horror musicals, in that you get the kids who get their hand on ancient documents from Van Helsing, but it turns out that it's actually sheet music, and they have to be putting together the band to defeat all the monsters. And meanwhile, you get all the monsters get their songs. You get a climactic battle of the bands kind of thing at the end. I think it could be a real winner.
So we could see like an after the fact music video for Monster Mash. They could go.
Oh, there you go. There's your closing credits right there, right?
Okay, and one other question about the film. Okay, when the Wolfman breaks into Warren Zevon, do we love that or we hate that?
I'd love it, but that's just me.
Depends on what Zevon he sings. Desperado Under the Eaves, I'm all in.
What a setup! Everybody thinks he's going to do Werewolf of London. He breaks into Roland the Headless Thompson Gunner.
Oh, he can do Roland. Yeah, excitable boy.
Oh my god!
Instant R rating. I mean,
God. I want to find. I have a meme in mind. I just don't have the right image for it yet. But the caption for it is going to be the first time somebody sings along with Excitable Boy and actually pays attention to the lyrics.
Yes,
I'm going to give you mad respect just for mentioning Roland the Headless Thompson Gunner, because man, that is an amazing song.
Yep.
If there's no profit in knowing it, I know it. That's my life. Oh, all right. So James, you've already kind of blown the podcast away by reminding us all that shock treatment existed, and we should all go back and watch it.
So I was thinking more of ones that would work cinema rather than stage, but Testament of Dr. Mabuse, get Kurt Weill, 30s German music for it. You could do a killer Testament of Dr. Mabuse musical. Either that or Tetsuo the Iron Man, and it would have to be all Japanese shock metal music.
Wow. Gosh, gee, wow, you never knew how badly you needed to see something until you
see.
Wow.
That was that, and that as I was thinking through this, I thought, what movie would I have to do if I saw that description? I've got to see what they did with this, and those were the two that I came up with.
Wow, that's wow. Well done, well done. Well, John, what would you make into a musical?
Boy, and my mind, I admit I have seen relatively few live plays in my lifetime, to my chagrin. So I'm trying to think of what would work well on the big screen. And I do think if I'm trying to think of a 70s era horror film that might really pop if you did it in the same way as a musical, let's say like Hair. Goodness, there's got to be some British Hammer horror from that period that would work well. I remember, and again, it's been quite a
Captain Kronos.
Captain Kronos very well might work quite well as a comedy horror musical. The other one might be a much more obscure one called. I'm gonna blow the title, aren't I?
If you need a second, I'll get a quick plug for those who want to know more about the glory of Captain Kronos. Check out John Wick's take on it in Fantastic Flops.
Yeah.
Please, go ahead. Please, yes, go ahead. Back to you.
Was it 7 golden vampires?
Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires.
Yes. You could have martial arts and wuxia and music and vampire horror. That I think could be quite a spectacle.
There you go.
Oh wow! And hey, and in the audience tonight is our longtime friend and drummer Mike Weatherford, longtime Vegas entertainment journalist who recommends a recent studio, The House on Watch Hill, about a boy that wants to create a haunted house by the team that got an original called Bandstand on Broadway.
Nice, cool.
Ooh, sounds interesting. And here we go. Another Screamed has people coming from all over to see it. Wow. Well, technically a retired reporter, but still scooping the big story. So there you are. You get when those become big hits, you can say, "Hey, I heard about them first on the Ghost Show podcast." Thanks to the crusading Mike Weatherford. Yeah. There we go. All righty.
Well, we were talking about this a little bit off air too. If you want to go see some interesting horror films that include music, there are always lots of Bollywood and Hindi films.
Oh yes.
Virana and Stree and a number of those 80s and 90s films. Virana is, you would like, Chris, it's got a real low budget Hammer, almost Mexican horror vibe to it, where the villains wear giant skulls and crossbones. It's got some great stuff in
it. My goodness, how did it escape me that there could be El Santo versus movies with the music?
Right.
By the way, if you do get a chance to check out I mentioned it on, I think, one of the earliest Ghost shows I was on, Mills Mascaras versus the Aztec versus the Aztec Mummy, which was done about 15 years ago, when he was already in his 60s, but still really, a considerable physical specimen. And that is actually a pretty darn good Mexican superhero versus monsters movie. And anyone who just likes a good superhero ending will also really, really dig the climax, which sees the return of some old school Mexican luchadora heroes, and as well as some of their legacies. And it was just a blast.
Very cool. Very
Excellent.
cool.
Excellent. Our dear departed friend Darren Watts, one of the last times I got to talk to him, he was telling me about how he had caught one of the later period El Santo films, and he had fallen in love with a sequence where they wanted, it was like one of the early 70s ones. They kind of wanted to contemporize it a little bit. So they had in the Mexican version of Iron Butterfly. But he loved how blatant it was that El Santo walked into a restaurant set, sat down, cut, they went to a separate take, then he applauded, got up and left, and that was Santo's day. And in between that is where they put the band's entire performance. There is absolutely no pretense that Santo and this band were
Was
ever
interacting
than like 100 miles.
Yeah.
And I was telling him that if we could get away, if the clip is short enough where we could get away with it under fair use, we should try to figure out the most bizarre bands that we could get El Santo to be applauding to. El Santo goes to dinner and he sees The Damned, or
Most Straight Jackets.
There you go. Perfect.
Most Straight Jackets would be the perfect band. And they were in. They actually were in Psycho Beach Party.
Yes,
they have a great number in Psycho Beach Party.
Yes, indeed. Oh, wow. Great reminder. Well, okay, so I have to wrap up with my choice for horror musical. Okay, so we're heading into the Thanksgiving season here in America. I know in Canada, Thanksgiving, you guys do it first, which means clearly you must have invented it. Old SCTV.
They do it nicer.
Thank you. So every year around Thanksgiving, while normal people get in the mood to watch Plane, Trains, and Automobiles, I get in the mood for Florida auteur Brad Grinter's Blood Freak, which, if you haven't seen it, is the old-fashioned story about a weightlifter who has a motorcycle accident, winds up being rescued by a bunch of dope farmers, winds up burning tree all the time, gets a job at a turkey ranch, gets roped into some mad scientists experimenting on turkeys, and then turns into a were-turkey. And if that's not weird enough for you, Brad Grinter himself, who apparently, I think at some point Rod Serling called Brad Grinter and said, you may want to cut down on the smoking. I really think you've gone. Okay, so Grinter will just randomly pop into the action, sitting at an empty desk with a bare 70s paneling wall behind him, and will just stare right into the screen, making these random pronouncements about life. I mean, if you've seen a lot of Ed Wood films, it's kind of the Bela Lugosi pull the string kind of interruptions, but they're even weirder because apparently, Brad, realizing that he was smoking himself into several early graves, had found weirdo 70s hippie Jesus religion. So you're watching this guy literally smoke himself to death and just giving you life advice. Now I was thinking, if you could take some of Grinter's more bizarre things and rewrite them where they rhymed, and then he could pop, in the musical, he could pop up from behind the desk and do a dance number with the paneling behind him. And just the amount of soul-wrenching ballad that you could get out of Am I doomed to be a were-turkey? Will I never know were-turkey love? I think that thing could run forever. Just me, but I think that could run forever. And there you go. And hopefully now you guys have a new way to spend your holidays. If you've never heard the glory of Blood Freak, go find it. Your Turkey Day holiday will never be the same until you add Blood Freak to your holiday.
I'm kind of thinking a lot of the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, to paraphrase a rather infamous saying, LSD is a hell of a drug. Psychedelic mushrooms, peyote. Hell of a drug.
and really, could there be any other better phrase to wrap up this evening with? So I want to go around and give our guests a chance to say goodbye, and if they're working on something interesting that people should know about, if they have an exciting project in the works. All right, Sean, what are you up to these days? What would you like to say to the folks while you have the internet at your beck and call?
Well, I'll just say we've mentioned Stratford Theatre Festival a few times. I happen to be a member for the donation, and the 2025 season tickets are available. I already gotten mine going down this year for people that are interested in spending it. It's a lovely venue. There's great theater productions. This year's two musicals are Annie and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Wow, what a mix!
As well as when they always do a couple Shakespeare plays. This year they're doing Macbeth, but the backdrop is the Quebec biker wars of the 90s.
Wow. I try to talk every new drama teacher into Titus Andronicus. Maybe I should try that angle next time. All right, Seth, what are you up to these days, my friend?
Oh, I'm always working on all kinds of things behind the curtain, but I'm trying to do a little bit more in front of the curtain these days and put up more small little fun games, and I'm releasing those over on Itch these days. I have about a half dozen things up there, and there'll be some more coming in the months to come. Let's see, I don't remember my Itch address. It's inkslinger.itch.io, I think it is, and you can find me there, or I'm Inkslinger most other places online. I'm on Blue Scale out these days.
Oh, yeah, and definitely check out Seth's stuff. He's truly one of the most gifted and innovative designers. I mean, and such love and gentle whimsy. Things not easy to pull off in this day and age. But the way your heart shows through your design, sir, is always very, very touching to me. And believe this is a year I think a lot of people could use that. So really, seriously, if you had a rough November, go check out some of Seth's games. They will perk you right back up. All right, James, I know you're up to many wild and wondrous things.
I've got some game design coming out for the Cats of Cthulhu 10th anniversary edition, which actually ties in, Sean, with the adventure you played. It's a Cats of Cthulhu scenario set in the Sanctum Theater that you run into in Nightmare City in the Call of Cthulhu scenarios I've been running. Tied in with my corpse pulp fiction stuff that I've been publishing in as short stories and comics. So I did a scenario for Joel for the 10th anniversary edition, which was really cool to be asked to do that. Working on something for Transgressive Horror 2. Doing some other things for David Larkins for Action International, and got 3 or 4 short stories and a bunch of editing done. So I'm super busy.
Excellent. John, what are you up to these days?
Well, unfortunately, I just haven't been doing as much creatively as I would have hoped during the past year or so. I've just been a bit preoccupied, and I think also just need to get a little re-energized mentally. I won't get too political, but I will say that it may be a little hard to keep my belief in the basic goodness and fairness of my in my worldview, given what I think is upcoming and what's already, frankly, we're getting a glimpse of. So,
put off watching Shock Tree.
Perhaps so.
We're Phantom of the Paradise, which is also not a cheerful film.
Yeah.
But you got the Willy Wonka essay coming out, which is super cool. So
do Blood Freak first. Blood Freak will get you feeling good.
There you go.
By the way, also going to thank the little shout out to the professor and also his compatriot Spike Jones, simply because I think I just had to get a little bit of a short shrift to my edit. So thanks be to both of them for giving me a little more polish than it might otherwise required. The professor's looking bewildered, but I assure you, I think you did yeoman's work.
No, 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 no. I'm always gobsmacked by how blessed I am to have Spike working for me and doing so
He does,
very,
he
very
does
much.
great work. And you know, Chris, we've talked about this a lot too. I mean, you know, getting the editorial input, John, is super helpful depending on where you are in the process. But as long as it's iterative and communicative, and the essay still comes out with you feeling like this is your words, that's the important part.
Oh no, absolutely. I
And
think
that's the part that
they give it a little extra polish, and usually I think my time management skills would have been a little bit. I would have had a little more leeway to give it like the thrice over.
right. But
Um,
that's something that Chris, you're doing a great job with.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I had a great teacher, great role
but
model.
I do think I still made a good case that
Oh yeah.
Willy Wonka is a psychotic, and
Well,
if it wasn't for Gene Wilder playing him the way he does, you'd realize this man is off the rails. He's just off the rails.
well, I think safely. Go ahead, please.
He gets a lot of mileage out of making candy and chocolate. I mean, if he was running a paint factory, he would have been locked up a long time ago.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
And then especially like when you realize, like, well, I won't go much into the essay, but it's like, is that really a happy ending? Is that like I don't like when you step back and think about it for a moment. Yeah, this I don't think this is going to work out the way all concerned are supposed to believe it's going to work out.
Right.
Oh, well, I really don't think I could top that note. So I should probably just cut to the chase and let everybody know that we'll be back next Sunday, the 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And at that point, we will be discussing Lovecraftian horror and all cosmic, your life is futile and meaningless, and really a little nihilism before the holidays. Who wouldn't be up for that, right? And joining me will be
quite frankly, but all right.
Yes. We'll be here with our super backer Skip Morton, and joining us will be the very, very talented Lynn Firestone Hill, the multi-talented Winter J, my dear old friend Jason Walters, right from the side of Burning Man, and making a rare public appearance, one of the other great unsung heroes of Ghost Show Press, the guy that makes our covers happen. The man, the legend, Mr. Hal Mangold, the Overmind Press, is going to be joining us. So if you've ever had questions about the graphic design on these books, we have actually forced Hal to leave his dungeon and appear on camera. So you want to be there for that one. So we'll see you next time for the season finale of the Ghost Show. Until then, thank you all for joining us. Thank you again, Sean, for making our books happen. Thank you guys for making them awesome. Thank you all for tuning in, and have a great night. We'll see you next Sunday. This has been the Ghost Show.
The Ghost Show.